y'all got to stop this. You got to stop this StreamYard. This is StreamYard. I'm getting a lot of, hold on everybody, I'm getting a lot of blowback. Hold on one second. I got the audio ready. My son now is working on the levels. I just unplugged everything, the dashboard, everything, so that we can get this going. Okay. Listen, if you hear a blowback sound, hold on one second. We're trying to make sure everything is cool. Everybody stay connected. This is what we have to go through every time to get on the show, get on the air. They play with everything. All right, hold on one second. Everyone, there's a blowback going on in here. I can't do anything about it, everybody. I'm sorry. I cannot do anything about it. Actually, this time, this is not YouTube. This is StreamYard doing this. Okay? So I just want to let you know, but let's go into this. They're not going to stop us from conversing with each other. They're not going to stop us from teaching the truth. They're not going to stop us from addressing the issues that no one addresses, okay? And from time to time, you'll hear me say, hold on, and I'll pause for a second, and I'll try to get some of the blowback that's in my ear out of the way. But I'm just letting you guys know, okay? So everybody, thank you all for joining me. Shout out to Joel Bradford, Faye Lou. I'm sorry. Speaking the truth. Let me see. Look on this dashboard. Daniela, thank you for joining me. This thing is now it's YouTube. Everybody listen. I sent Carl a shot, let him know we're live. You know, there's a time delay and everything like that, and also there's something going on. I don't know if he has the days mixed up or whatever, but I hit him up and we'll wait for him to get in. But until then, we're going to talk on some issues, okay? I was addressing when you guys were telling me there was no sound. I was telling you that I was doing the show and there was a week or two pause in the show around the Christmas time up until the first of the year. And I did that specifically because YouTube was hitting me with infractions on a daily basis, going back to the inception of the show and telling me that my content wasn't my content. Instead of them doing it like they normally would do, one infraction, they know that it's hard to try to appeal all of the infractions, so they're hitting me with multiple infractions. So I think we're up in between 400 and 600 infractions, not including the infractions that I got from them yesterday from my live, which is a few of them saying that my show is copywritten, it's not my material, so they have to demonetize all of this. This foolishness, man. This is what they're coming at me, but they won't stop the truth, and we're going to address a lot of issues today. So I want to share something with you all. And the reason I'm telling you all this so quickly is because I want to get you in the know. I want you to understand what's going on behind closed doors when you don't hear from me or whatever like that. And I want to thank everybody that wished me a happy birthday on my birthday, and everybody that gave me a shout out and everything. I really appreciate that. Now, let me play something for you guys, okay? This is a short clip. And we're going to address this because this is very, very important that you understand what is going on and what is driving these leaders of government. Even the governments that you think are the most rational leader, have the most rational leaders. And then you look at it and some of their policies is not matching their rhetoric. It's very important that you listen to this, okay? Because this, in the grand scheme of things, economics plays the most important part of what is going on. So pay close attention to this.
Slovakia's future does not align with Brussels. That's the message from a conference of the nation's Homeland Party that wants the EU to scrap sanctions against Russia. The party says it's promoting Slovak national interests and has initiated a petition to mend ties with Moscow, saying Russia is not an enemy. The motion has already received more than 160,000 signatures from Slovak citizens. Some local politicians say sanctions are leading to a collapse of the European bloc.
I think that everyone who is involved in economics knows that after the obvious inevitable defeat of the Bandera regime in Ukraine, which allowed the collective West to drag itself into this war, they understand that one day this war will end and that we will also have to pay the US for Lend-Lease, because Ukraine is experiencing huge economic and financial problems today and will probably be forced to declare bankruptcy after the war, and it is the member states of the European Union that will have to pay off its debts. We are here to stand up for ourselves, as a Slovak nation, as Slovak citizens. And if our initiative grows into something international, as I said, it could be the final nail into the coffin of what was originally a good project, an economic project of cooperation between states, which has somehow creepily turned into a dictate of what these states can think, what they can do, and what not only their present, but also their future should look like. I believe that the biggest risk the European Union will ever face is a collapse based on economic decline. As I said, Germany is threatened by deindustrialization, and this will affect not only its economy, but also, of course, the standard of living of the population. The same is true in France, where the national debt is growing at an enormous rate. The Italians are facing a euro crisis, and these problems will only get worse.
Is it our goal to preserve the current decaying colonial EU? No, our goal should be to preserve us, Slovaks, in cooperation with any nation that wants to cooperate with us. And let's not forget that we are not only Slovaks, but also Slavs. We, in the Slovak movement of Renaissance, see this very clearly. Everything that is happening in Ukraine is an attempt to drive one big wedge between the Slavic nations, because someone does not want the Slavic nations to communicate, cooperate, be economically and politically strong. This is the eternal onslaught of the Anglo-Saxons and Germans to the east. Slovakia's future is not in the European Union, not in this European Union. It is time to start cooperating with the BRICS countries. There is economic power there, and there will be political power there. In conclusion, I will say something simple and quite clear. When this war's over, Slovakia should be on the winning side, and the European Union will not be the winner. Today, in the states that are the locomotive of European integration, particularly in Germany, there are significant and influential political forces that have entered and are entering election campaigns with ideas of leaving the EU and returning to the German mark. This is already happening in Germany, so, as my colleague said, we are convinced that the European Union is threatened with disintegration.
You guys, let me pull it up real quick. Let me pull it back a little bit so that you can see. Look what they've done. Hold on. Let's see. Come on. Let me see if I can get a good angle of it for you guys. Oh, hold on. Hold on, everybody. I'm going to show you guys. They're playing games with the microphone to frustrate you guys. Listen. Let me see if I can pull it back a little bit. Hold on. They're not allowing me to show it right now. But anyway, I'll put it on the this is what it says. Looks like your mic was unplugged. Then it says plug different mic in, click the mic button, and unmute. I did all of that after they did it the first time. This is what they do to me. They did it live on the air. Think about that. Because I'm talking to you guys and trying to tell you, listen, the reason that they're lashing out at me, you would think that I had 500,000 subscribers, right? You would think that, the way they continue to come at my show. This is why I took 2 weeks off from YouTube, because of this right here. But right here, I cannot blame YouTube. This is StreamYard doing this. And we know that StreamYard gets orders from the State Department. We know that, okay? And so we know that they're messing with us. Just like Blog Talk Radio takes orders from the State Department. They are really after me, right? Hold on one second. Let me see something real quick. They're muting my mic again. Hold on one second, everybody. Man, come. This is unreal. Hold on. All right. Come on. I have to keep looking at the mic because it's muting by itself. Okay. Let's see. Yeah. They are muting my mic. Here we go. Come on, stop. Listen, if you can't hear, please, as soon as they mute my mic while I'm talking, if I'm still talking, put it in the chat to let me know my mic has been muted again, because they keep playing with this flip the mic on, flip the mic off thing. All right. So, as I was saying to you guys, the only way to address the problem is to find out what the patient is suffering from, formulate a treatment plan, and then attack the disease head on. Well, we see what the world is suffering from right now. You know I'm mad right now. Let me tell you something before I finish it. You know I'm mad. It is 27 degrees. I have a hoodie on, and now I'm sweating. You know I'm hot right now, and I'm not talking about in the physical way. I'm hot because they're messing with my show. So you know when I'm starting to sweat and it's freezing, below freezing here, you know that Rashid is teed off right now. But listen, what is the world suffering from? Degradation, immorality. The governments and the people have become unethical. They've put so much meaning and so much value in materialistic things and in sexual deviance that anybody that comes talking outside of that becomes an enemy, because there's the few at the top are the ones who continue to benefit from the ignorance of the masses and from you being enticed into this world of deviance, immorality, being unethical, and focusing on materialism, right? Because if you focus on materialistic stuff, guess what happens? You take on the mind of the government. What does America focus on? Her economy, right? And why is she in all of those lands? She says for national security and her interest, but why is she in those lands? Because those lands are either on water routes that are vital, right? They either are on massive amounts of oil, gas, or some kind of natural mineral, or some some rare earth materials, and that is materialistic. I'm going to prosper at all costs, even at the misery of the people who reside in those lands. If you think I'm lying, what did she say? Iran is the bully in the Middle East. Iran resides in the Middle East. You are the foreign entity there. Britain is the foreign entity there. Israel is the foreign entity there. NATO or the NATO nations are the foreign entities there. So you're telling me the people who reside there are the troublemakers? I want you to think about this very, very closely. When America goes into Afghanistan and she fights the Taliban, who are from Afghanistan, the Taliban are the insurgents, the terrorists, and the radicals. Not America, not Britain, not NATO. When she goes into Iraq, Saddam Hussein and the Iraqis are the insurgents, the terrorists, right? And the fanatics. When she went into Syria illegally, I might add, Assad became a dictator, a tyrant, and illegitimate. And the Syrian Arab army became insurgents, militants, and terrorists. Do you see the theme here? To demonize, delegitimize, and then eventually victimize the people of those lands in order to dominate commerce, trade, resources. This is what the West does. This is why they keep coming after my show, right? Because I'm talking to you in a common sense way. I think most people don't talk to you in a common sense way. It's because it's not that they don't have common sense. I think that they just don't process things like that. Because they may have been in government, they may have been in a higher up office, or they may have financial connections, and they don't see it that way. But I'm going to talk to you from the man in the mud. I'm going to tell you what the average person may be thinking but can't formulate. Because it's very important, very prudent that we understand why the wars are taking place and why we're at the midst or on the precipice of all-out war. You cannot go in other people's homes and expect them to be all right with it. And if they fight you for coming through their door or their window, they're not the terrorists. You are. If they fight you to keep you from taking their prized possessions out of their home or from raping and pillaging and robbing their family, they're not the terrorists. Yes, you are. The West needs to hold a mirror up and reflect on the policies that they are imposing and have imposed on the total population of the planet Earth. See, I force you to think because we don't think in these days and times, and this is what they get off on. They don't respect your intelligence. They don't respect your aptitude. They don't respect nothing because they keep putting out garbage for you to consume, thinking that you're going to eat it. This propaganda of vilifying the victims and exalting the aggressors is what is pushing the world to war. Russia is belligerent. Russia had no right to attack Ukraine. Russia is the aggressor. And in history, your version of events, you forget to tell that you invested $2 to $5 billion in the overthrow of the democratically elected government. And each time they held an election and the election didn't come out the way you did it, you had a revolution to force a recount or another election until you were able to impose your will on those nations. You're trying to do it in Georgia. You've done it in Armenia. What you were doing it down in Bolivia until the people got fed up. You did it in Venezuela and the people was fed up and said, no, enough is enough. Honduras is now jumping up. Look at the Sahel nations in Africa. They are now kicking out former colonial powers and telling, listen, we're tired of this mess, man. Listen. And the West doesn't report on it and they think everything is all right. How is it all right when France gets 25 to 50% of its uranium from Niger or Burkina Faso, which France then exports some of the electricity and some of the energy that it produces from that to other European nations, and then 90% of Burkina Faso or 90% of Niger is in dark. Tell me, how is that legitimate? I see Carl in the booth. I'm about to bring Carl on. We both were having problems. I'll give you 1 minute to get yourself together, Carl. I'll give you 1 minute. He's in the booth, and I want to thank everybody for hanging on throughout all of the problems we've had to try to get the show going. You see for yourself that they're after this show. Constantly, hold on, they're clicking my mic off again. Hold on 1 second. You suck, StreamYard. Okay, we got the mic back on. Now I'm gonna bring Carl in, and then Carl and I are gonna cook on these things. Carl, how's it?
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I need to fix my mic. Let me quit and come back in. I'll be right back.
All right. For those of you who thought Carl wasn't here, you see he's here. All right, he was in the booth, and I was giving him time to get himself together. But I want to thank each and every one of you for the patience that you've had with me going through this. You know, this is pretty much almost every show that we have to go through this just to get a show on the board. Salute to Michael, Phobos Moon. I'll be back. I like that. I'll be back. Cosmo Ray. My Perseverance Chameleon is in the building. Let's see. Joel Bradford is in the building. Random, you know I always mess up your name. Random is in the building. I like the play on words. Agolf Twitler. it's in the building. Warsame Haji is in the building. Naeem 88 is in the building. Thank you all for joining us on this show. Carl will be back in just a second. But as I was saying, How is that just? With 90% of the African nation where you exploited the resources from, is in the dark, and yet the resources are lighting up Europe. How can you even justify that? The one thing that I say this to my Christian brothers and sisters, all right? The ones with morality. Would Jesus do that? Let me bring Carl back in the booth because we've had a hard time getting this show going today. How's it going, Carl?
Hi, Rashid. I apologize because I got a little too invested in the daddy duty. I totally forgot the time.
I'm doing the same thing back and forth. There's an echo, but Carl, I'm glad it took you a minute to get on the show because they were muting the mic, and every time I unmuted it, StreamYard was muting my mic back, and the audience they were so mindful of it that they continued to let me know, hey, they're muting your mic. They're muting your mic. So I really appreciate the audience for doing this. So let's address something. Carl, I was talking about how these colonial powers continue to rape and pillage resource-rich areas, and then they call the victims the aggressors, and they call the aggressors the victims. And I'm going to put it into a in a way that I want you to give me your take on it. So America and the Western world have pillaged Africa, Latin America, West Asia, Asia proper, and now they're pillaging Eastern Europe, right? That's why the lithium mines were so important in Ukraine. Russia has just seized the lithium mines, and BlackRock probably will pull out now because the lithium mines have been seized by Russia. Why is it that the Western media continues to talk about China's debt, so-called quote-unquote debt trap, as China is trying to put a win-win situation by technology transfer, high-speed rail, upgrading infrastructure in these regions, and they're doing great investment. And the West has the nerve to say this is a debt trap, and China is trying to make these nations become beholden to China, when for centuries that these very nations that are accusing China stole resources and didn't pay anything or did not upgrade any infrastructure, anything for centuries.
You know what's real debt trap, Rashid? It's called U.S. Treasuries. I mean, this is why U.S. Treasury Secretary keep on going to China. People wonder, why is Janet Yellen keep going to China? Does she really love the mushroom so much? It's because they need the Chinese to continue to buy U.S. Treasuries. U.S. sanction is telling China, like, look, we know you hold a lot of dollars, but we don't want you to spend it to buy American asset. We don't want you to spend it to buy American high-tech product like chips. We just want you to park your money into our treasury bills to continue to finance our government spending, our military spending. And China is realizing it's a scam, so they're reducing their U.S. Treasury exposure. It's down from the peak of 1.4 trillion to somewhere around 700 billion now. So it's already half of what China used to hold. Whenever the West talks about China, it's almost 100% projection, because debt trap is all they know. That's what IMF, World Bank has been doing for decades. The reason a lot of the African government and government in Latin America and Southeast Asia are turning to China is because China offer alternative. Before, they only had IMF or World Bank, and now China is offering a third choice, and that's what the West do not like. They do not like there's an alternative to their way of exploitation and neocolonialism. So they call China neocolonialist. I mean, it's like the language of projection. That's all they know, right? And now, guess what? Now they're cannibalizing themselves. Now U.S. is gonna go after Greenland and Canada. Trudeau just tweeted out a tweet. I never expect this to see Trudeau to put out a tweet said, "We will never join United States." I mean, like, this is not a joke anymore. But this is where we are. It's the thing about, I said before, I'll say again, the thing I appreciate about Trump is he presents an honest face of U.S. imperialism. You know, he pulls the emperor's clothes off to revealing there's no clothes underneath. The naked U.S. imperialism now is on display for everyone to see. It's never about democracy, human rights, liberty, freedom. I mean, it would be nice if Americans have those too, but it's always about dominance and the supremacy. U.S. have to be number one. Most of the Chinese people, they are not worried about competing with United States. They are concentrating on develop their own country to make China more prosperous, to make their own life more prosperous. But Americans see this, they're like, oh my God, we're losing to China. China is beating us. Like, China is not thinking about beating United States. They're just trying to have a better life. But this is kind of the U.S. primacy mindset. They have to be the top dog because they cannot conceive a world where U.S. is not number one. That's the end of the world for them. And this is why, in the last days of Biden presidency, he's lighting fires all over the world right now. Whether it's deepening conflict in Ukraine or tacitly agreeing to or supporting the coup in South Korea. That's another crazy spot over there. The South Korean president, there's a arrest warrant for the South Korean president, President Yoon, who sang American Pie to Biden, and yet the military is defending him in a bunker, and you barely read about this in American mainstream media. Most people only thing they know about Yoon is him seeing American Pie in the White House. They do not know right now he is being besieged in his bunker, and the military is preventing the police from making the arrest. And this should be a big news. But America pretending that that's not happening because this is very inconvenient for the U.S. military posture in East Asia, because Yoon is one of our crucial partner to build the trilateral military alliance between U.S., Japan, South Korea to contain China. That's the overwhelming foreign policy objective of Biden and Trump. And I don't think anything is going to change when Trump takes over later this month. This is why a lot of nations are turning to BRICS, because BRICS is not about imposing a so-called universal value on everyone. Like India just said they're not gonna support the BRICS policy of using for a local currency. They're going to continue to use US dollars. Now, a lot of people, multipolarity people, are criticizing India, but then again, this is one of the strengths of BRICS. It's not forcing the BRICS members to follow one dictate, from Moscow or Beijing. Everyone have their say, and everyone can choose their own path of development. Just like India has done. Whereas the so-called Washington consensus is they're ramming down their value down everybody's throat. You have to. It's like that. It's like that movie Full Metal Jacket, man. It's like when the sergeant says, inside every gook's body, there's American dying to break out. I mean, that's still their mentality. They think everyone can be shaped into American consumer, right? That's their end goal. But here we are.
When it comes to India, Cosmo Ray says India is the Trojan horse. Now, I talked about India for a while with the people, and a lot of people get mad at me, but people don't realize that India still has a lot of colonial holdover and a colonial mindset, and the British still have their assets in the military and in the government in India. And what Russia and China have learned to do is that work around that and for win-win situations, because they understand that the United States and that Britain will not just let go, and they'll continue to put their foot on it to try to stop anything that is beneficial to nations outside of dollar and U.S. and Western hegemony. So I'll put that up. But I want to ask you, Carl. I was reading an article months ago from RT, and it was about a British leader, and he was talking about how the colonial nations should be the colonies should be thankful for being colonized by the colonial nations. And then I read just today, this is what Macron said, and this lets me know that they're losing, as they lose their power, they're losing touch with reality. Macron, somebody says, yeah, French said that today. You see, I was talking about the British that said it, and now just months later, a couple months later, the French are saying it. Macron says this. According to RT, the title of the article is Macron accuses former French colonies, plural, of ingratitude. How dare you be ungrateful that we rape, pillage, and rob you, and that we're occupying you with military bases and exploiting your resources? How dare you? It is to your benefit that we get to steal your resources and subject you to our policies. To me, that is absolutely insane. But when you have been a colonizer, that and you're part of that exceptional thinking, it makes perfect sense to an irrational person. And he can formulate that stance is because he's benefited from the colonial era. You understand? So he cannot understand the plight that those nations have gone on. And now people say, well, colonialism was good. And they brought a lot to Africa. I'll say this to you, that prior to the Moors going into Europe, there were no sewage, there were no bathrooms, there was no street lights, there were no none of that. The Moors brought that to Europe. Go look. They brought street lights, sewage, baths, everything to Europe. But everybody forget about that. And so because as the tables turned and the West started occupying and colonizing, they wrote history the way that they wanted history to be. And I think that is a detriment to the people, because when you dumb down the people to the reality, you're setting yourself up for a big fall, just like they dumb down the people about China. They are trying to impose communism on everybody. China is trying to exploit everybody. Blah, blah, blah. And to show you what I'm talking about, how they like to keep trouble going. I think the National Security Advisor is flying to India to talk to India on issues that does not even pertain to the United States. It's about the dam that China is inaugurating. And China say it's a win-win situation for China, India, and all of the downstream nations. But the United States wants to cause trouble there because India is apprehensive about that dam. What do you say about that matter, Carl?
Well, first of all, I like to quote Samuel P. Huntington. Huntington gets a lot of hate for his, conflict of civilization, clash of civilization. But he has a famous quote. He said, "The West won the world not by superiority, not by the superiority of its ideas or values or religion, rather by its superiority in applying organized violence. Westerners often forget this fact. Non-Westerners never do." And this is Europe. They didn't sell during the so-called age of discovery. They didn't sell halfway around the world to help the natives of Africa or Latin America. They went there to seek riches, and this is. And it's for Macron to claim that somehow Africa is benefiting from French colonization. This is really like the peak self-parody, because France today would not be able to enjoy its current living standard, deprived of all its African connection. They have, even in Africa today, they have something called CFA francs, and this currency to back the CFA franc. So all the gold gets collected and shipped to France for safekeeping, right? And so France is like this parasite that lives off the riches of Africa, and yet they turn around trying to lecture Africans. This is there's another famous quote. There was an African leader. I forgot his name, but he said, whenever the West, whenever the Chinese come to us, they bring investment. When the Westerners come, they bring lecture. And this is exactly what Macron is doing. He's bringing lecture while at the same time profiting from all the wealth extraction from Africa. Africa is incredibly wealthy in minerals. DRC, for example, is rich in nickel and cobalt, one of those critical minerals to make electric batteries that goes into EVs. By the way, that's why Biden went to DRC, or why Biden is traveling to Africa, because he wants to secure those resources. That's a real reason why the West is entrenched in Africa. They're there for the African resources. Yet somehow they gaslight. This is the ultimate gaslighting. It's like, we come here to help you. Let us help you to help ourselves to more of your gold and your oil, your minerals. This is why a lot of now there's a slew of West African nations are kicking out the French, because they're getting tired of it. They're getting tired of the French hypocrisy and their exploitation.
So this is Chad and Senegal have hit back with one premier saying such comments are a sign of contempt. This is what I'm saying. The state of mind of the Western leaders, because they have dominated in such for so long, they cannot fathom that their former subjects would stand up to them and say, hey, we're tired of being exploited. I think that is one of the reasons that America is investing so heavily in so-called fighting terror in the North Africa and in West Asia, and then positioning itself, as they openly stated, to prevent China's rise. Because in their mind, it's subconsciously, they don't think that they can get along on an equal playing field with everybody else, and they think that they always have to lead and dominate and dictate. And how dare Africa assert its independence? How dare Latin America scream about independence? How dare China rise to our level and looks to be breaking past our level? We cannot. We'll take the world to war. We cannot allow the Chinese to become the preeminent power. And my question to everybody is, why? Why? Let us look at this for a minute. We have not in centuries had China as the top power in the last century or so. Now, but we've had multiple colonial powers as the preeminent power. Now, if we look at the trail up to this very moment, what has the leadership of the West led us to? A whole bunch of wars and on the threshold of thermonuclear annihilation. Do you want that leadership? That's what I'm asking people. How about change the horses and see if that horse can lead you in another direction or something like that? Carl, go ahead. I know you have something on your mind to say. Go ahead.
This is why there's so much propaganda about China, because they don't want you to look at China as serving an alternative model. They're already giving up trying to say, the West is the paragon of virtue. They're just saying, look, you think we are bad? China is going to be much, much worse than us. You better stick with us, the devil than China, this crazy unknown entity that could be 100 times worse than whatever we do to you. This level of copium will increase, unfortunately, as China continue to rise. Right now, they talk about Chinese overproduction. It's true. China can produce everything. China is now already the factory of the world. The only manufacturing United States can rival China is the copium production. There's an overproduction of copium in US, and you will increase exponentially as China continue to rise and the infrastructure continue to crumble in US and the West, because because so many people have been brought up with this kind of propaganda. They've been brought up with this Western superiority mindset to kind of poke holes in that narrative, to try to open their eyes to the reality. It's painful. It's like you're changing someone's identity. So their first instinct is to resist it. So we're still in the denial phase of the 5-step grading process about the Western decline right now, Rashid. I mean, even though some elite already aware of this problem, that's why the famous Gardner of Borrell has said the era of Western dominance is over. And this is also why Trump's own grandchildren speak accent-free standard Mandarin. Yet they continue to brainwash the rest of the public of like, China's bad. Anything China touches, it corrupts. It's crazy. I mean, because one of the things is, because it will lead to a lot of uncomfortable questioning. Why is China able to build a massive network of high-speed rail? Why China is able to lift 800 million of its citizens out of poverty? And what have you done for us? They cannot answer that question. And that's why the easiest way is distract and redirect. And this, and again, project their own guilt and their own past crimes onto China. Don't focus on genocide on Gaza. Focus on the non-existent genocide in China, and the focus. It's really tiresome, but at the end of the day, this copian overproduction is not going to save the U.S. or the West from declining, because it's baked in. The elite has no interest of changing course. During the Cold War, the Western elite actually came to a realization: in order to compete with Soviet Union, they had to make massive concessions to the working class in order to have their buy-in in the ideological struggle against the Soviets. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, a lot of these concessions that were given to the working class have been rolled back. And this is why you've seen the inequality and the Gini index of inequality was steadily on the rise. Now, today, we are about this at the same level, inequality level in U.S. as like the roaring 20s, the times of robber barons. We're back to that era again. Now we we just switch out the Rockefellers with Elon Musk and Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos. We are heading toward techno-feudalism right now. Yeah. Elon Musk basically just bought his way into the U.S. politics, U.S. presidency, and people are not like. It's kind of mind-boggling how like some of these MAGA people don't see what's going on. The Elon Musk, the big MAGA civil war between Elon Musk, Vivek, and the MAGA right over immigration. It's like, of course, Elon is gonna like further his own interest in trying to bring more tech workers into United States so he can keep the tech wages down. While grow his techno empire, and guess what? Trump ended up supporting Elon, of course, because Elon is the one that paying the bills. Anybody paying attention would see this from miles away. But like they're playing all these MAGA rights crowd for suckers again. They're just being used to get another Trump turn, and now they're gonna get right down to the real agenda, which is a full headlong plunge of United States into techno-feudalism future. This is what I think. It's my take.
And they don't even stop to think. Wow, see, this is something that stays on my mind. If you're in a hole, stop digging. And when we're looking at the United States and we're looking at her descent into abject poverty and feudalism and collapse, and we're looking at the Western world in decline, they don't stop to think, hey, let me pause for a minute. Go ahead, Carl. Go ahead. Say.
But Rashid, you are assuming we are on the same boat. We're on the same boat as Elon Musk, right? Or Jeff Bezos. For them, yeah, the hole is digging deeper and deeper for the rest of average Americans. But Elon Musk is getting wealthier and wealthier. He won big time when Trump got elected. His stock skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Nothing has fundamentally changed about the fundamental of his company. The only thing that changed was Trump got elected president. He was the greatest investor of all time. But this is how it always works. In United States, money controls politics. Money runs everything. And the people at the top, they benefit from the system. They continue to benefit the system, even though the whole system is crumbling all around us. But the system is impoverishing the 99% to feed to the top 1%. And so the top 1% continue to flourish, even though the whole edifice is coming down. This is why there's no change in course. This is why there's for all the demands of change, for all the slogans of change, what has changed in the last 20 years? Even the U.S. electric generation hasn't changed. The power generation in the United States is flat for the last 20 years. This goes to all the public infrastructure as well. Biden has a Build Back Better. I don't know what happened to that. It sounds good. He even had a program called the Build the World Back Better. To rival China's Belt and Road. Again, I haven't seen any results from that. This is again, it's cheap to talk, but that's where kind of the U.S. politics, it awards these big talkers. But whereas in China, like a lot of the top leadership, they're engineers. They're focused on doing things, implementing things. They may not be able to compete with the United States on the propaganda front, but they can get things done. And they're getting things done, not just benefiting the small circle of Politburo members. They're benefiting everyone in the society. And that's something U.S. lacks anymore. Right now, U.S. is not a country. It's not a nation. It's an economy. It's just an economy. It's a marketplace. It's where everyone come to make money. And that you're not going to build social cohesion from that. You're not going to build group solidarity. At the end of the day, it's just everyone out for themselves, like a jungle, like a real United States is a real jungle. But I'm done with my ranting. I'm gonna take a break.
But the thing I was saying is, you're in a hole. Stop digging. And it seems like to me, the elite, they continue to push these irrational policies, and common sense tells you that. Why would I antagonize the very people that are holding my debt? Why am I antagonizing the people that I am looking to keep my economy afloat? And why am I antagonizing the people that could have a safety net for me if my economy implodes? But instead of them doing that, they continue to go full blast in Latin America, go full blast in the Caribbean, go full blast in Africa, antagonize China, try to divide Asia, make war in North Africa, in the Middle East, and in East Europe. To me, they have a self-defeating policy. And to show you what I'm talking about, there's an article on the Economic Collapse blog. And it was written January the 6th by Michael Snyder. And the title of the article, and I've never read this before, I just looked at the title, so I'm going to read a little bit of it with everybody else. The title of the article is The Truth About America's Crumbling Infrastructure. And in this article, the thumbnail is a crumbling bridge. And so it says, signs that we were once a truly great nation are all around us. Previous generations of Americans handed us the keys to the most magnificent domestic infrastructure that the world had ever seen, but now it is literally falling apart all around us. Thousands of bridges are structurally deficient, and there have already been some very high-profile collapses. Hundreds of thousands of miles of highway and roads in the United States are in very poor shape. Aging sewer systems are leaking raw sewage all over the place, and children are being slowly poisoned by lead pipes that desperately need to be replaced. The power grid is hopelessly overloaded and is extremely vulnerable. Meanwhile, our ports, our dams, our subway systems, our bus terminals, and our airports are crumbling right in front of our eyes. The truth is that our nation's infrastructure says a lot about who we are. So what does America's crumbling infrastructure say about us? Sadly, it says that we are rusting, crumbling, decaying, left over from a better, more prosperous time. Now, that to me is a whammy of a statement, because it grabs on to something that should be focused on by the elite, by people like Elon Musk, because remember, as you said, he is wealthy in stocks. If China turns the spigot off, most of his wealth collapses because his company depends on China. So, I mean, a lot of these billionaires are wealthy, but only in stock. The country is going to the dogs. The military is being beat down and overstretched. And you see a class divide, a color divide, a cultural divide. All of this shows us that not only is America imploding, but when you add on the most important but most neglected aspect of the collapse of the American empire, the defunding of her educational system leaves her unable to compete with China, unable to compete with the rise of Africa, unable to compete with Latin America, unable to compete even with Europe and the Middle East. This shows that the people are blinded by the dogma of propaganda instead of being enriched by the reality of the time. What do you say about this, Carl? Because with the defunding of the educational system, China graduates millions of people with engineering degrees a year. The United States educational system is lacking in every manner. We have people that are 20 years old in high school. You have people that go through high school that can't read, can't do basic math. In a superpower, that is a sign of systemic rot and decay, and it also means that America has laid a nuclear bomb at the base of her society, because in essence, education, proper education, is what civilizes us. Proper education is what enlightens us, and proper education is what causes a society to be maintained and progress in the future. What do you say about all of that, Carl?
Well, again, this is assuming that our elite has a stake in America. The U.S. elite has no stake in America. They have no stake in development of U.S. as a prosperous society. This has shown again and again in the last 40 years by the Wall Street policy of deindustrializing America, by moving factories out of America to East Asia as a big FU to the unions, and to chase the highest return, to chase higher margins. And this is, they think that the world is their oyster, right? They don't care whether they're squeezing the plips in America or they're squeezing plips in Asia, Africa, Latin America. For them, they are the 1%. They feel like they should rule over all. They're the one. They have the one reign to rule them all. And also, there's another. All these hate. What you said? Why do they antagonize China, which was the largest trading partner, and a biggest growth engine in the world economy? Well, I think it has to be said, but there's a racial component to this. Sir. And this was not just us talking. It's not just us like a bunch of guys talking on the fringe. This is enunciated by Kiran Skinner, who was the director of policy planning at the United States Department of State during the Trump term. And what she said was the competition with China is different than the competition with the Soviet Union in the Cold War, because China, again, he said, because the Russia and the Soviet Union, they're still part of the Western culture, whereas China, this is a fight with a very different civilization, different ideology, and the United States hasn't had that before. And again, and he said, it's also very striking. It's the first time we have a great power competitor that is not Caucasian, right? She said it right in the open, because China is non-Western, non-white nation that's on the rise, and that's becoming a peer competitor to United States. And this is what they found shocking, and this is why they find unacceptable. I mean, this is a real. I mean, some people tend to subscribe to the view that there's a global cabal, right? That's ruling all the clips, a global elite that's ruling all the clips. They're collaborating with like the top leadership of the Chinese Communist Party, et cetera, et cetera. But that's not actually happening, because it is happening at the U.S. level. For the U.S. level, it's true. These elite, they have no allegiance to the American people at all. They only have allegiance to their own pocket and growing their own wealth. But again, if you look at what's actually happening in China, people are getting lifted out of poverty. Their infrastructure is being improved. Their public education has been improved in the last decades. And they're graduating more and more STEM graduates every year. You know, right now they graduate about 4.5 million, 4.7 million STEM graduate each year, whereas America graduate about 500,000. And among those 500,000 STEM graduate, a large number are Chinese and Indians or Iranians or people from the rest of the world. And this is part of the reason why Elon Musk want to bring in more H-1B visa. But of course, the main reason is he want to keep the tech wage down. I mean, it's not that America don't have smart people. America has more than 300 million people, third most populous country in the world after China and India. Its incentive in the society is so skewed toward finance. You get all the smartest folks going to finance, going to the Wall Street. And the people in the Wall Street just continue to screw everybody else. and these people are not going to. Why go for a tech job when you can join the managerial class, to join the Wall Street, or going to, I don't know, like health insurance or something. And so again, this is rather try to fix the problem, trying to fix the incentive, try to fix the incentive issue and rate. One of the things to fix that incentive is let the wage rise in the tech sector. That will attract more people, college graduate, to go into the tech sector. But no, Elon Musk's solution is, let's bring more people from the rest of the world. Let's bring more Indian engineers on H-1B visa, because he knows that will keep the tech wage down. And again, that's not going to help the issue of people not going to pursue engineering degree, because they will rather go into more lucrative fields like finance and Wall Street. And this, the problem is still our elite don't care about us, right? But in China, the Chinese leadership is still working to further the life of average Chinese people. And this is the fundamental difference between U.S. and China. A lot of people don't understand this, but it needs to be said. This is because sure, there's also inequalities in China as well, but at least the Chinese elite, they're working for the betterment of the whole society, whereas in United States, they just working for their own pockets. This is we don't need to look far. Just look at Elon Musk. This is and Elon Musk is supposed to be the best hope to revitalize America, and yeah, I just don't see it's happening. Elon Musk famously said, just get rid of the high-speed rail. We'll build the Hyperloop, and the only Hyperloop they got is a little taxi thing in Las Vegas. I mean, it's so ridiculous. People don't even talk about it anymore. But this is, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I ranted again. I mean, it get me worked up when I talk about all these problems in the U.S.
That's when you're at your best, Carl. That's why I love to have you on the show, because that's when and it's so much information that comes out. And I want to just lay this fact on a lot of people. There are a lot of Nigerians, a lot of Kenyans that are graduating engineering degrees, and I want to lay this fact on you. Do you know that China is building all kind of advanced highways and trains all across Africa, but also they're doing a technology transfer. And I was thinking about this when you were talking, and I just Googled African smart cities. For those of you who are listening to us, do you know that Africa has smart cities already? The United States has none. In Kenya, they have a project that is known as Silicon Savannah, and it is a smart city. And it is an IT area of about 5,000 acres. Everything, and they're doing this all across Africa, but you don't get any understanding or any inkling of this, because all they show you is somebody in the bush somewhere. It's like disinformation by omitting certain things, and that's what the West is doing. They tell you that China is exploiting Africa. They don't tell you that they're exploiting Africa. Everything that they do is good, but everything that China or Russia or everybody else does is bad.
I can tell you anecdotal stories. I bank at Citibank, so so when I still live in US, one time I went to the bank to resolve some banking issues, and I met this banker. He's Korean. He grew up in an evangelist Christian family, and he grew up in Africa. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. How did you end up in Africa? And she's like, oh, they live in this compound of these American Christian evangelists in Africa, spreading the gospel and all that. And so I asked him, what was it like? It's like, a lot of these white American missionaries, they're super racist. Yeah. they go to Africa and they just stick by themselves, and they live in their compound. They're getting fat from all these donations coming from United States, right? Mm-hmm. And so allow them to live large, live like kings in Africa, because the price differential, and then they just look and they, instead of their supposed aim to help with African people, they just talk shit about the Africans around them all the time and acting racist toward them, and really the real reason, if you look beyond the propaganda, they're just there because they can have a better life than they would have in the United States. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay. I mean, I don't think that's a one isolated incident either. And this is despite all the talks from Obama to Trump Trump said they called the African countries shithole countries, but from Obama to Biden, for all the talks about U.S. is going to invest in Africa, but it's all talk. At the end of the day, show me the money. Show me the money, like the Jerry Maguire movie says. Show me the money. China is putting their money down. China is building physical infrastructure on the ground. They're building they're building the 5G network. And one of the advantage a lot of the African nation have is because everything is new. So they can they can build it up with all the latest technology, and China is helping them with that.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, for all these talks about competing with China for influence, etc., the U.S. multinationals they're not putting their money in Africa. I mean, beyond the extractive industries like oil and gas, most of the U.S. investment in Africa are in the oil and gas sector or mining. Beyond that, they're not really interested. They're not. This is also why there was there was Chinese investment in everything else, because the West is not even trying to compete. They're not even trying to compete in those sectors. So, and they instead they endless producing articles of calling China a neo-colonialist or neo-imperialist.
Mm-hmm. I want to play something for you. This is by Professor Wolf, and he's talking about Trump, but he's also talking about China and Russia, and it's about 6 or 7 minutes. I want you to listen to this call and give me your take on this right after. Here we are.
What needs to be understood is that the United States is in a unique historical situation, and the kind of activity toward China that you see is mostly a consequence and a reflection of the problems of the United States at this point. There are some interests here in the United States who are very eager to have good economic relationship with China, to trade, to invest, to move capital back and forth. That is largely the view of big business in the United States, and of course, especially big business that is either already active in China or hopes to become active in China. That's why the visit of Mr. Cook from Apple is an example of that. So that is a group of interests in the United States that are very positive towards China. The real fear of the American business is that the Chinese market will be closed to them. They want to be able to produce in China, and even more, they want to be able to sell into the Chinese market, which is one of the fastest, largest growing markets in the world. And they are very aware that if that market closes to the United States, it may open to the Japanese, to the Europeans, and then the United States will become isolated and will lose competitively. This is worrisome to them, so they want good relations with China. So that's one side. However, at the same time, there are other forces in the United States that are pushing in the other direction. They want conflict with China. They want confrontation. They want a battle. The last century has been the century of the American empire, and it now sees that its role in the world economy, financially, export, import, all of it is being challenged, above all by the People's Republic of China, but even more by BRICS that China has built with India and Brazil and Russia and South Africa, and now the many more countries that are joining. This is a challenge. So from 1980 to the present, have been a time in American capitalism where it has undergone two serious experiences. Number one, a vast growth in the gap between rich and poor. Every measure we have shows that. A shrinking number of people are very wealthy, like Mr. Cook or Elon Musk of Tesla. But for most Americans, I'm talking 70 to 80% of Americans, these have been times of poor jobs, poor income, poor opportunity for them and for their children. It's becoming harder and harder. You have to go to the college, but you can't pay for it. So you have to take on enormous personal debt to get a degree, which isn't all that valuable anymore anyway. It's very, very difficult. The second thing that has happened is that capitalism has had serious instability. We had a very bad inflation over the last 3 or 4 years. Before that, we had a cataclysmic unemployment coming out of the COVID pandemic. So we've had very serious oscillation up and down on top of a long-term growing inequality. The mass of the people want to know, why is this happening? What can be done to stop it? And they turn to the political leaders, Democrat and Republican, for answers. The answers that have happened, the most successful answers, number one, waves of poor immigrants coming into the United States from Mexico and Latin America. Second explanation, China. China is why we are having our difficulties. Now, these answers are false. China didn't cause American businesses to leave the United States. That was a decision made by American businesses, like Mr. Cook, because it's more profitable to go to China than it is to stay in the United States. Capitalism has always moved, but the control of our politics by big business means that the politician can never, ever blame the capitalism. Cannot do that. Cannot blame the big businesses. Well, who are they going to blame? China is a convenient scapegoat. So you have a political reason for conflict and confrontation. So you have the American Navy in the South China Sea, and you make lots of noise again about Taiwan. But these are symbolic acts, and there's lots of economic exchange with China, like Mr. Cook's visit, and he will continue to invest. Apple depends on China, so it will continue to be active there. That's the conflict in the United States between a political structure that needs to attack and criticize China with tariffs, with trade war, and all the rest, and an economic capitalist class that wants good relationship. That fight is going on right now. I can't tell you how that's going to come out, because that's an unresolved contradiction. It is ironic that what is beginning to emerge and what may be an important for China development inside the United States is a coming together of the big business community with a peace movement, with all of the forces in the United States that are terrified that the conflict with China can become a war or a nuclear war. And that might change the politics of the United States in ways we have not seen for a very, very long time. One thing I can assure you, change is going on inside the United States. You can see from my gray hair, I was born in the United States. I've lived here all my life. I see the most momentous changes economically, politically, ideologically going on now. I've never seen anything moving so fast. So I expect that perhaps you and I will have more than a few occasions to discuss this in the months and years ahead.
looking at, I think the lashing out of the West. Now, there were some numbers I pulled up while we were, and you saw me turn sideways. I was pulling up a few numbers, and it strikes me that Africa is under the threat of so-called terrorists. The United States continues to flood, the West continues to flood Africa with these assets that they have. They are continually to try to play up on the division between China's borders and China's borders and what India perceives as its borders. And something struck me. I said, just let me look at the population, because the size of the population can mean a lot when in economics terms. And so I looked up at the population, and it tells me that India's population is 1.429 billion. China's is 1.411 or 1.42 billion. And it says Africa's population is 1.5 billion. So these three, entities, I won't say nations because Africa is a continent, but these three entities comprise roughly 40 to 50% of the global population, which in terms of economics is astonishing. So when we look at that, we can understand why Africa is under the gun, why China is perceived as a threat, and why they want to keep India to play India off China. What do you say about that, Carl?
I mean, it's divide and conquer. That's right. This is an age-old strategy, and I want to go back to the clip you play. I mean, I agree 100%. It was like nail meets a head. This is a lot of the problems, a lot of the xenophobia propaganda against China is really a reflection of internal problem in the United States. Because as U.S. continue to decline, the way of life continue to deteriorate, the impulse is to look for scapegoats, and it's always easy targets: immigrants and China, right? and this is what wins votes. You know, this is how Trump gets elected, but even the people who caused that, he mentioned Cook, the CEO of Apple. So Steve Jobs was actually asked by Obama when Obama was the president. Obama asked Steve Jobs, why can't you open factories in the United States to make iPhones? Steve Jobs just flat said no. Like, can you imagine Xi Jinping talks to Jack Ma and say, can you make sure you have more Chinese local suppliers? And Jack Ma just like, no, fuck off. And that's not going to happen. But that's exactly what Steve Jobs said to Obama. It's like, no, it's not going to happen because, he gave some reason. He said, there's just not enough skilled people in the United States, which is bogus. A lot of they ship a lot of the components to Foxconn factories to be assembled. What the real reason, of course, that they're chasing the cheap labors. And again, because big businesses rules United States, you can't criticize them. Even Obama, the leader of the free world, is just left helpless. When Steve Jobs said no way, Jose, Obama was like, okay, there's nothing he could do. There's nothing he could do. And it's but even those people, even the people, I think the trend, unfortunately, is trending the other way, where there's going to be more support for confrontation with China, because American businesses, a lot of them were making money head over toes in China, including like automakers like GM, Ford. GM was selling more cars in China than they sell in the United States, because China is the largest auto market of the world. But now they're getting their lunch eaten by the Chinese domestic producers like BYD and all the Chinese EV makers. In a recent interview, the Ford CEO, Jim Farley, he admitted, he said, like, for all those billions of dollars we've taken out of China, we never thought about, investing into the new energy vehicles in China, and now we're paying for our mistake. So he was admitting basically they're treating their operation in China as a profit extraction tool. They're taking profit out of China, and yet they're not investing back into research and development of the new energy vehicles. That's actually where Chinese government had a very clear strategy of incentivizing everyone to do it, but the Americans weren't interested because they're happy of making lots of money selling the ICE vehicles. So they got caught flat-footed by the electric vehicle transition in China, because right now more than 50% of the new cars sold in China are now new energy vehicles. And this is the area where the Americans and even Japanese and German companies cannot compete. And so as a U.S. American company lose their competitiveness against their Chinese competitors, the tendency is trying to kill the competition. This is why you have the lobby, you have the 100% tariff on Chinese EVs, and this is why the Facebook and Google are funding the U.S. Congress to lobby for the ban on TikTok, right? And so now the previously the business community used to be more pro engagement with China, but now as Chinese own domestic industries start to grow, they're now feeling the heat from the Chinese competition. So now they're lobbying U.S. government to limit, to wage economic warfare against China. This has happened. Now they're proposing a ban on the Chinese drone maker DJI, and then China says, you know what, two can play this game. So China sanctioned the U.S. drone maker Skydio. And the Skydio is like, oh, this is not fair. China is trying to weaponize their supply chain. But it was Skydio that has been lobbying the U.S. Congress to ban DJI in United States. It's what's good is what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? I mean, this is why, unfortunately, I do see we are already in the midst of a Cold War 2.0 right now. I mean, there's a lot of forces in the United States, political forces, economic forces, that's pushing U.S. on a head-on confrontational course with China. I don't see a sign of that being reversed anytime soon. But as you mentioned, why they, why do they? Africa. You mentioned Africa. U.S. supposedly was in Africa to fight terrorism, but that's also the same excuse they talk about U.S. occupation of Syria. U.S. military was in Syria to fight ISIS. It's 10 years later, they're still fighting ISIS, and there's still 3,000 of them there. I mean, Pentagon just admitted, they're saying, it just came to our attention. There are actually 3,000 U.S. troops in Syria. We thought there were only like 800. It's like, you are Pentagon. You are telling me you don't know how many troops you send over to Syria. Well, of course, this is the same Pentagon that has never passed any audit. The official military budget of the United States that just passed by Biden is around $900 billion. But we know it's got to be way more than that, because a lot of the thing was not even on the. I mean, like all the hundreds of billions that sent to Ukraine, that's not part of the defense budget. Like the fact that Pentagon never passed that budget, and supposedly they don't even know the number of troops they send abroad. The defense budget is easily over $1 trillion, and a lot of it is unaccounted for, and goes into like bloated boondoggles like F-35 projects. But it's not designed to make America secure. Those American special forces that died in Niger, they did not die to make America more a secure place. They died there to secure a U.S. footholds on Africa, because they also know Africa is demographically, Africa is the last remaining continent where population is still growing. So, so in terms of human capital, in terms of mineral resources, Africa is the future. This is why they now have an AFRICOM. That they split off AFRICOM from CENTCOM, and now they have the so-called lily pad strategy in Africa. They literally have one small, like the so-called lily pad are these like temporary small rotational military bases, and U.S. has one lily pad almost in every African country. That's crazy. I mean, like these things, like a lot of Americans public are not even aware of. Like people only find out that American troops in Nigeria after people died, after American servicemen got shot and killed in Nigeria. Like that, what is American military doing in Nigeria to fight terrorists? Where did the terrorists come from? Oh, those terrorists they filtered down from Libya. Wait, Libya? After we overthrow Gaddafi, and now, of course, Libya, they have like open market for slavery, after the Gaddafi overthrow, and all these jihadists that overthrow Libya conveniently, some of them got shipped over to Syria. That was documented in Seymour Hersh's Rat Line article, and then many of them went to went across the Sahara Desert, went to the rest of the sub-Saharan Africa, where now conveniently U.S. military is fighting terrorism, the terrorism that they themselves created. This is going to be, but this has been the same modus operandi forever. I mean, like I'm in Bali, Indonesia. Back in 1958, CIA was bombing oil field in Indonesia. I mean, like people today, many Americans are not even aware of this history. But this is what they have always do. The goal is to maintain the U.S. primacy, the U.S. dominance over the world at any cost, and at the cost of preferably of the poor Africans and the Asians. But now it's increasingly at the cost of average Americans themselves. But that's neither there or here for the people making the political planning at the top.
I have two more things to talk about, and we'll address them quick because I know you have diaper duty. And one thing is about Carl. China is stealing U.S. technology. So why is it that China has a 6th generation warplane and the United States is having trouble with this 5th generation warplane? That's number one. Go ahead with that one.
Oh, there were so many copium that came out after the China flew its 6th generation prototype. The thing is, like now they're saying, oh, but U.S. did this back in 2020, but it was top secret, so nobody saw it. They're talking about the U.S.'s 6th generation fighter project called the NGAT, Next Generation Air Dominance. But look, NGAT right now it literally went back to drawing board. They are in a limbo right now because it turns out each NGAT plane will cost $300 million. Yes, $300 million USD. And so now they don't know if they're gonna afford it. And some of the copy is insane. They're like, oh, well, okay. China may got it in the air first, but it's gonna be a Sputnik moment. Because they're gonna be scared shitless. They're gonna plow trillions of dollars into the next generation fighter project, just how like our F-15 outperformed the MiG the MiG program. The U.S. is gonna assure the U.S. air dominance for the next 65 years. Look, okay, so first of all, right now it's China and U.S. is not analogous to U.S. and USSR. China has the world's most productive industry right now. China is a manufacturing superpower. They make 60% of the world's ships, right? And United States have like, in comparison, US have like 3 shipyards, and this is just the Navy capability, but in every field, China is. China is where United States was in 1950s. In the 1950s, after end of World War II, United States comprised about they made about 50% of the manufacturing in the world, because the rest of the productive region of the world got devastated. Europe, Japan, all bombed to hell. So U.S. was one of the remaining countries where the productivity was untouched. Whereas today, China, everything is made in China. So even if the United States were to pour trillions of dollars into the next generation fighter project today, they're not going to be able to catch up with China now, because you can print money all you want. All these US dollars is not going to translate into actual manufacturing. It takes years to set up factories and right now, literally the end gap is back on the drawing board. So there's a lot of copium, and as we said, every step of advancement made by China is going to be accompanied by a wave of copium from Americans who are unused to. This reminds me, Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert comics. Mm-hmm. Now he's considered a well-read, well-educated American, right? Yet I just saw him put a tweet. It's like, how is China going to survive in the age of robotics when they will lose their advantage in slave labor? China have robots planting trees in the desert right now. They have more industrial robots than the rest of the world combined. And he's asking questions like the boomer that he is. How is China going to survive in the age of robotics when they're going to lose their advantage in slave labor? The problem is, even well-educated Americans like Scott Adams are so brainwashed by their own propaganda. China have moved so fast that their mental map of China is still stuck back in like 1960s, mm-hmm. in the Cold War era. But China already lived in the 2020s. United States still live in the 20th century, and in the mind of a lot of people. So I don't know if I answered your question. I just got to get off that chest. There's so much copium about the 6th generation fighter. It's unbelievable. Like
hold up, Carl. Hold up.
Okay, go ahead.
There was not one 6th generation warplane revealed by the Chinese. There were 2 6th generation war. But I thought China was having problems developing that advanced WS-15 engine that would power its 5th and 6th generation warplanes. It's absolutely just crazy, Carl.
China did have to catch up in terms of engine. When they first did their the Chinese fighter program, they had to rely on Russian engine. But now they already swapped in the WS engine for their J-20 fighters, and I expect for they will have their latest WS-15 engines for their next generation 6th generation fighter as well. They are catching up. They're really ramping up, and then we will see in the next few years they will catch up in the engine sphere as well. China moves at warp speed because, again, China's human capital is deepening. 4.7 million of STEM graduate every year. Those people are going to very productive high-end manufacturing. And this is why a lot of people are trying to focus on the real estate collapse in China. They're like, Chinese economy is over. China is going to collapse tomorrow. But actually what happened was by popping the real estate bubble, now all those money that used to go into build apartment blocks and buildings for speculation, now these resources can be more productively deployed into high-end manufacturing. This is why we're seeing the Chinese breakthrough in new energy vehicles, for example, in the last 2 years. Because just 3 years ago, American and foreign brands dominated the Chinese car market. Like over 60%, 60 to 80% of the market was dominated by foreign brands. And now today, the picture is totally opposite. It's because all this money that previously went into build houses, now they went to build like lights off factories, fully automated factories that's making EVs, that's making cruise missiles. That's gonna make China's 6th generation fighter too, because China is the one that can actually afford to have 2 6th generation fighter programs. They actually have the economy and the manufacturing power to support it. Whereas U.S. is still trying to decide how they're going to afford $300 million a piece NGAD plane. That's still on the PPT phase, on the PowerPoint presentation phase. So it's people always ask Carl, Carl, why are you always laughing on your podcast? You're talking about very serious geopolitical matter. You know what? I'm never going to stop laughing. I'm never going to stop laughing at the U.S. imperial decline. And I'm never going to stop laughing at stupidity of U.S. politicians in self-sabotaging. A lot of the problem U.S. is facing right now is self-inflicted. It's by the same short-sighted, self-indulgent elite. They brought this on themselves. And I will not apologize for my laughing, because yes, the U.S. decline is funny to me.
Well, we'll close out with this. First of all, a little birdie whispered in my ear. Well, we already knew that China had the largest land force. We knew that 2 years ago they surpassed the United States as having the largest navy. And a little birdie whispered in my ear that China now has an air force that is comparable to the United States Air Force, and they have the equal amount or greater J-20s than the United States has F-22s. But I want to bring something back to what you said as we close out. When we were talking about the manufacturing capacity, the naval manufacturing capacity of the Chinese vis-a-vis the Imperial West. You can put in these words for those of you who are listening. Chinese shipbuilding is 200 times larger than U.S. And it'll come up. According to recent intelligence reports, what intelligence reports? They said U.S. intelligence reports. China's shipbuilding capacity is estimated to be around 200 times larger than the United States, with the Office of Naval Intelligence stating that China has roughly 232 times the shipbuilding capacity compared to the U.S. Now, what this says to me is that a pivot to Asia to block China in or to prevent it breaking out is futile, because you can't replace your lost ships like China. And not only that, in that report, it states that China has a multiple time advantage over not only the United States, but the entire West in shipbuilding capacity.
China built 50% of the world's ships. I mean, how can you come? No, 54%. So it's more than half. So how can you compete with that? And on top of that, once China's 6th generation fighter gets commissioned into service, which some experts estimate around 2030 timeframe, those 6th generation fighters will have a range all the way up to Guam. Mm-hmm. So like this. How do you contain China? Guam was supposed to be like the U.S. bastion, right, in the Western Pacific, because they already know Okinawa is a lost cause. They admitted as much recently by the Indo-Pacific Command admiral. He said, we have, after creating the hellscape in Taiwan for the Chinese, I still have to maintain air and naval superiority to protect our forces in Okinawa. How the heck am I supposed to do that? Right? They already know, Okinawa is not defensible. Their backup plan, which was designed during Donald Rumsfeld's time, was to build Guam into a super fortress and their forward deployment point to contain China. But now, once the Chinese 6th generation fighters gets put into service, people are expecting in 7 years' time, which is 2020. Somewhere maybe just after 2030, U.S. will have no answer for that, because from what we know about F-35s, the development cycles of U.S. new type of U.S. airplane takes a lot longer, and by that time, China will have a whole full generation advantage over the aircraft like F-35s, which is not that great of a plane anyway. And they will have the reach all the way to Guam. So any kind of hope of U.S. containment of China at that point will just be pure copium. It will be even more blatantly obvious to everyone. I look forward to that. I look forward to 2030. I will still be here in my chair, laughing and eating my popcorn.
Before we go up there, incognito, you said U.S. Navy bigger by tonnage, but China's is big, no longer. That is no longer the case. And in the report, it says that. Matter of fact, here's one of the things. It says the slides show that Chinese shipyards have a capacity of about 22.2 million tons compared to less than 100,000 tons of the U.S. And China's building bigger ships now. More advanced ships. They're not just big, they're more advanced. Just to take a look, do you know that China has the most powerful destroyer on the planet? That type of 55, it has twice the visual range as the United States destroyer, and its missiles fires 3 times as far. This is not from me. This is from a U.S. Pentagon report. So,
same goes for China's air-to-air missile, PL missile series. They also outrange the equivalent of U.S. Air-to-air missile. So that at that point it all come to stealth, because at that I still see copians. Okay. So their missile outranged us. But what if they can't see us? Our planes are more stealthy than they are. So we can see them, they can't see us. So even though if their missile outrange us, but if they can't see us, they can't hit us. We can still hit them first, right? I will see. These copians are now just fodders for jokes, because about the tonnage numbers, China is still building. China is still ramping up its naval production. They just launched the world's largest amphibious assault ships, which should put Taiwan on notice, because why would you need amphibious landing ships? The things will do amphibious landing assault. But anyway, so then China will probably build another aircraft carrier with a nuclear power. Everyone is pretty much guessing that another carrier is on the way. And the advantage of China over United States is also China is not trying to replace U.S. as a global hegemon. So China doesn't need the carrier group all over the world. They don't need to send carrier group to Latin America. They don't need to send carrier group to Africa, to Mediterranean, to Persian Gulf. They are mostly concentrated on the area and the waters around China. And that's where China always will have local superior advantage, because U.S. Navy will not come against just Chinese Navy. They will come against the Chinese Air Force, Chinese Rocket Force, because everything is still conveniently located within China. Chinese Air Force based in China, Chinese Rocket Force based in China will have a long range cover all the way to Guam, and this is what U.S. Navy will have to come up with, and it will be increasingly untenable as the years goes by, and this is why a lot of the Pentagon planners are so obsessed about 2027, about like a possible war in Taiwan in 2027, because many of them in the back of their mind, they know after 2030, it's kind of hopeless for US to try to contain China anymore, because by that time, China's 6th generation fighter will be in service. China will have more carrier battle groups. And they might even make more advances in their submarine fleet. Right now, the only one area that U.S. still enjoy a superiority over China is in their submarines, in their undersea elements. But again, China is still catching up. They're ramping up. I mean, I expect China to close a gap in the next 10 years.
And in closing, I said in closing before, but there's so many facts. I want just to throw out a few facts, going about China, and then we'll close out. Do you know who actually won the Turkish air defense contract? It was the Chinese. They actually won the air defense, but the United States put so much pressure on Turkey that Turkey had to go and try to find another air defense system, and they chose Russia. But when it was demonstrated, the Chinese air defense system actually won. And I'm not just saying this to be saying that. You can look this up. Also, Iran, when they repelled the U.S. and Israel's assault, they were using not Russian air defense systems. They were using Chinese air defense systems. And one more thing, we got to remember that Serbia has just put online the new advanced Chinese air defense systems, and they say that these are the best air defense systems that they have ever seen. Now, I'm just saying, go look it up.
That's poetic justice. That's poetic justice, because Serbia, that's where the first U.S. stealth plane was shot down ever in history by old Soviet anti-air missiles, and now they have brand new modern Chinese air-to-air defenses, and so NATO have to think twice now.
In closing, Carl, what do you have to say as we leave? I know you have diaper duty. I have to check on the children also. So I know you have a few parting words for everybody.
I look forward to share my laughs with everyone throughout the U.S. imperial decline. We all bring out popcorn and we have a big party on Rashid's stream. Let's make it more regular occurrences from now on.
Yes, sir, Carl. Hey, thank you so much. I'll contact you later, man. Be blessed. Send your family my love, and I'll talk to you later, my friend.
Thank you, Rashid.
All right. Everybody, thank you for joining us on the most powerful platform for truth, bar none, on God's green earth. The show was actually slated for just an hour to an hour and a half, but we kept it up because the first 30 to 40 minutes, they were bothering the audio and all of that stuff like this, so we extended it. I want to thank each and every one of you for your time, because you did not have to spend it here. You could have spent it elsewhere, and because you spent your time here, we hope that you've gotten an equal or greater value in return. On that note, remember to always do right by others, not because there's some material gain or some accolades of accomplishments for you doing it. Do it because it's the right thing to do, because even when no one else is watching, God is always watching you. And remember that I love each and every one of you who loves truth, but know that the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that God has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm so humbled. We're out of here. Peace.
Told you to walk away. That was my first and last mistake. I'm blue without your face. But what can I do? 'Cause I'm just a sinking ship, and you're just a pair of lips, but I've lost in the moment.